Yeah, just, you can stand anywhere you want, just don't block the media cameras, okay? And there is overflow room upstairs where you all just came from off the first floor. Since I'm getting things together, let's start off with a moment of silence for anybody impacted by violence, police violence, violence of all kind, and we'll start in about 1 minute, okay? Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. My name is Shamika Parrish-Wright. I am the Louisville Metro Councilwoman for District 3. I have called you all here today. March 13th marks the day that Breonna Taylor and Kenneth Walker's rights were violated. Breonna Taylor was killed by our Louisville Metro Police. And we are here 4 years later. This today also marks my 4th month as Louisville Metro Council. Thank you. I am joined by, I've invited all the colleagues I've invited every colleague, no matter if they're Republican or Democrat, but my amazing colleague, Councilman Ja'Cory Arthur, is here, and he is with District 4. And thank you. We are here because it's 4 years later. 4 years later after civil unrest. 4 years later, we're still seeking accountability through our Louisville Metro Police Department. 4 years later, no one has been held responsible for the killing of Breonna Taylor. I'm not making it up. It just has not happened the way we wanted it to happen. 4 years of seeking justice for Breonna Taylor amid a history of abuse, of power, institutional harms with our Louisville Metro Police Department. We recognize that Breonna Taylor and Kenneth Walker were not the only victims of police abuse, corruption of power, and we honor all of those whose stories we will never hear, who have been buried, who have died, who have worked within the system, who have left, who have quit, who continue to sue and seek justice in every way possible. I am honored to be joined by the family of Breonna Taylor and a host of colleagues and people who are fighting for justice in every way that they can, through our educational system, through our metro government, through their community, through their faith, through everything. It takes all of us working together. I am also not blind that since we announced that we were doing this months ago, we didn't get a lot of response except from the community. That's been very positive. But we also see that we've started something. We saw an earlier announcement that Senator Rand Paul and Congressman Morgan McGarvey are reintroducing at the federal level, and Bianca will talk about that. But Amber Duke with ACLU, but they're reintroducing legislation that was previously filed. We saw our mayor's administration, Mayor Greenberg, who I met with 2 days ago with my team. They wanted to meet with me. He will not be here, but wanted to talk to me about the things that the Louisville Metro government has been doing and what his administration has been doing. I said that I hope that you're not attending intentionally and that you would be here to talk to the community. We're not going to beat you up here. We just want answers and we want justice. I do want to say we did have that meeting. He gave some updates, which we will include later. This is an emotional day for me for so many reasons. My dear friend Sam Dubose was killed by the University of Cincinnati police. His birthday was yesterday, March 12th. He was killed in 2015. The father of my daughter, his birthday is today. He was killed through gun violence in Cincinnati, Ohio as well. I didn't ask to be who I needed to be at what we coined Injustice Square. I was asked to show up because our young people I wanted to make sure that they had a resource, that no one else will die while seeking justice for Breonna Taylor. We've had now 5 subsequent deaths as it connects to Breonna Taylor. Tyler Gerth, David McAtee, Travis Najdi, Chris Wales, Chris Smith, and now most recently, Larry Walker. I wouldn't have met any of them if it wasn't for what happened on March 13th, 2020. And I would love for them to be in the audience with you today. So keeping the fire of accountability is a way to recognize a lifetime of trauma and abuse, abuse of poverty, abuse of power, and corruption that has been inflicted upon the Louisville community, the state of Kentucky, and beyond. There is no way to include all the victims of this history of police practices in our beautiful city. Some of those victims remain nameless. Some have been silenced by the clock, lack of money and legal resources, and a lack of ongoing support it takes to keep going. Some have been buried, and some formerly and currently work within the Louisville Metro Police Department. I hate that on March 13th, 2020, Breonna Taylor and Kenneth Walker became the perfect victims that represent the many harms caused by our Louisville Metro Police Department. I have also invited them to be here. I also invited the Inspector General's office to be here. He is out of town. He said he may send the representative, and he did. Thank you. 4 years of protests, court proceedings, and various community organizing has shown your community's commitment to justice. This is what you see in this room. We are committed to justice. We're not anti-police as much as we are anti-corruption and violence. Thanks. But it has not been without extreme costs to many of us. Many of us lost family. We lost the ability to go home. We lost our jobs. We lost our homes. We went into debt. We suffered. Our campaigns, our promotions, all of those things have been tied. When I was even getting dressed today, I thought about what T-shirt to wear. You know, while we were there seeking justice for Breonna Taylor, I gathered hundreds of T-shirts. I'm thankful for Happy Dance Quilting because those have been made into a quilt for me. But even as I got dressed, I thought, do I put on the No More No Knock Warrant T-shirt? Do I put on the Injustice Square T-shirt? Do I put on the faith community? Do I put on the white coats who came out there with us, Doctors Against Police Abuse? Do I represent the many lawyers who stood in the gaps? Over 120 lawyers gave their free legal services for over 1,000 protest arrests. Unprecedented. Protesters arrested in 2020 still have felony charges. When I met with the mayor, he said, I thought all the protest charges were done with. They're not. That tells you some people are not paying close attention. Right. That's right. We said when we started this is a long game. Because of the institution of policing, it is able to outlive us, able to thrive, able to be perpetuated again and again. And even while under investigation from the DOJ, we have people here who were still abused, even while the DOJ was investigating. The DOJ, not a community activist group, has proved that LMPD has engaged in severely racist and problematic practices from its inception until its present day. We have someone that's going to speak on the history of policing and help write the report that the administration tried to bury. But now, because of what you all are doing and you showing up, they have it now on the police website. That didn't happen before. As we reflect on the last 4 years, we must always say Breonna Taylor's name. Uplift those whose lives were cut down too soon. Acknowledge the sacrifice of our dedicated community members and celebrate the victories we have won. It has not been all doom and gloom. I see April Hearn, who has just come in. She just released a book, and she will be speaking about that. I see Community Control Now, who are working on other options to provide a community response to the protection that we need. We won things like no-knock search warrants on the local level. We had people fighting for it on the state level. And now we have people in this room that are fighting for it on the federal level. We together stopped a judge from being reelected who we said Mary Shaw started it all. Mary Shaw was replaced because she did not give Breonna Taylor or Kenneth Walker their due diligence. And we know that if you sign 5 or 7 warrants in 12 minutes, you have not read those warrants. More people and groups can be named who are out here taking action. We have made sure that Daniel Cameron did not get a promotion from his lack of action in Breonna Taylor's case. What you see are residents and citizens, and I want to end with my remarks here to tell you that if it was not for our unhoused community, we would not be able to have held the longest civil unrest protest that this region and this city has ever seen. Our unhoused community helped us do that. And this my colleague, Councilman Ja'Cory Arthur, helped fight to make sure for the first time in Louisville's history, we've seen more monies go towards affordable housing, services, and care and harm reduction than ever in our city budget. We see the appointment of an inspector general who has not had an easy time getting the information he needs, but the mayor affirmed with me 2 days ago that they are working on that relationship to make sure that the inspector general gets what he needs, and I'll let his representative speak on that. We see a civilian review accountability board that people need to know. This isn't the first time. The Kentucky Alliance Against Racist and Political Repression and other groups worked for that over 20 years ago before merger, and it was passed by the old Board of Aldermen. Many of them you'll see pictured if you look around in this city hall. But it was sunset when the new administration came in, and for over 20 years it lied dormant, but it was needed. And we wouldn't be here if it was in place. I am proud that there's so many things happening from Feed Louisville to the Arthur Street Hotel to Hope Village to all of these things that have come out of our protest at what was called Hot Dog Square, which we turned into Injustice Square. Now there is a historical marker that the police are upset about, but there should be a monument for EMTs like Breonna Taylor. Her co-workers came there many times to be with us in the square. There is a monument for the police, there is a monument for our fire, and there is not one for EMTs who helped save us and help carry us through COVID-19. So I try to bring notes because I feel so passionate about this. I think that it's important that as we continue to move forward, that you all keep the fire of accountability lit. And every option that you have, I'm not asking you to give up your jobs, but I'm asking you to use your role to be a resource to an ongoing movement to correct and right the many wrongs. We cannot build community and police relationships if people don't want to be honest and be held accountable. The mayor said, I did apologize. If you look up these 2 interviews I did, I gave an apology. That's not enough. No, it's not. So because of that, I am working on a resolution that honors the People's Consent Decree that was put together with many organizations and hundreds of people who have signed our petition, which is linked, and we are continuing to do that work. I'm working with my colleague, Councilman Jacory Arthur. Before he leaves, we want to get this resolution passed as a formal recognition, a statement of values that we are against LMPD's corruption and violence and ongoing power and control of our city. Absolutely. Thank you. I want to first invite Bianca here. She is the aunt of Breonna Taylor. After Bianca, I'm asking Amber Duke with the ACLU of Kentucky to speak. And then I'm going to ask Dr. Kate Fossil to speak, and I will announce the next speakers after them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you pretty much summed it up. First and foremost, thank you all for your continuous support for our family. Today, 4 years ago, Tamika Palmer lost a daughter. I lost a niece. We lost a grandchild. We lost pretty much the glue to the family. She was everything in one. And from day one, this is exactly what we've been asking for. The community to come together and help us fight. Because nobody believed us March 13th. It was a horrible feeling to go home and people believed the first thing that they saw on the news, that she was a trap queen. She was caught up. I don't know what it was, but it was just so hurtful. And, you know, to see that baby grow up from, you know, she was blossoming. She was thriving. Breonna worked 2 jobs. She had her own everything, and it was snatched away by just people who tried to take the law into their own hands, and it's not right. But today is growth. This is growth. And Shamika, come up here, Shamika, I'm sorry. But if it wasn't for this woman right here, man. Sacrifices, y'all. All I can say is she is a walking sacrifice. And for her to still be out here, it just shows growth and passion. She was out there every day, the book is probably too long for her to write. Like, and she encouraged me to do better, you know, and not give up. And just thank you for continuing to organize, and because you know what this community needs. You've been calling everybody out from day one, and you've been taking every punch, rock, glass that's been thrown at you, and yet you still here. And I just want to say we're proud of you and thank you. Don't you ever forget that. This is the change we need to see, you all. I'm not going to come up here and call out our governors, our mayors, because it's a lot of things we all could have did different. It's a lot of things we all could have changed. But 4 years, it's a new start. Breonna ain't never coming back. We ain't gonna never see that child again. It hurts. Just think how her mom feel, how we feel today. But this is uplifting. This gonna keep us going. And remember, justice for Breonna Taylor is a movement. I keep telling y'all that. These little victories, take these little victories and keep going. There is no big I's and little U's in this movement. My niece deserves to be respected, honored. Her legacy, and you know, it's not time for that. But I appreciate y'all. The Breonna Taylor family appreciate, Tamika Palmer appreciates y'all. You know, it's hard I know I've been her voice, but that's just me. She gon', you know, I've been like that, you know. I'm little sister, I'm little big sister. But at the end of the day, this is hard. This is like one of the hardest battles no one ever should have to go through. For someone to be taken by someone that's supposed to serve and protect you, Who the hell do you call when the police kills your baby? Come on, we have to do better. We have to push this legislation for her. And that's what it's about. Tamika Palmer is working with Republicans. Come on now. If she can stand up next to Rand Paul, so can we. We can put our differences aside and really fight for what we need in this community. And as we leave here today, remember that our kids are watching. We have, our little ones in our family have to experience this tragedy firsthand. They have to still go to school. They don't know how to articulate their expressions. They learn from us. So we have to keep that in mind. JCPS, come on. What are we doing here? One of the teachers is what's keeping this state afloat. And we can't even get the education and the tools we need in this school system. Come on, we can't even get them to school safe. Are you kidding me? Come on, we have to do better. It's time for us to make sacrifices and come together. Please, I'm begging you. But I'm going to leave on that note. Thank you. Please continue to support Breonna Taylor.
All right, I need you all to know you're going to hear things that I asked people to be unscripted and to bring the unadulterated truth. Some of you might not like some of the things that are heard, but I asked you to listen. I did not plan on crying. I wish I'd have told them don't make me cry. But so I just want you to know that as you hear these speakers, hear what they're talking about here and listen to the message. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Amber Duke. I'm the executive director of the ACLU of Kentucky, and thank you, Shamika, for bringing us all together today. I think my heart is really full today after hearing Bianca. I'm almost in tears, but I think it's so meaningful to be having this conversation in this space today, in this building, talking about justice, talking about healing. And I also don't want us to forget the joy, because when I think about all the videos of Breonna, I think about the laughter, I think about her dimples, I think about, all of the joy that was happening at Injustice Square. People being together, people finding meaning and working together. And I'm sad that we're here 4 years later, that we haven't found justice, that there is still so much to do. But it warms my heart that we're still together and doing it together, and that we're also finding the joy in that. I talked to Shamika for a long time last night, because I was like, Shamika, what do you want me to talk about? There's so many different things I can talk about. So I'm going to talk a little bit about policy, a little bit about ongoing lawsuits, about accountability, and also the Department of Justice dissent decree. As has been mentioned earlier, I had the honor of Monday of being with Bianca, Congressman McGarvey, Senator Rand Paul, for the announcement of the Justice for Breonna Taylor Act, which is a ban on no-knock warrants at the federal level. And my former colleague, Katora Heron, I'm not sure if she's here today or in the room, but when she was at the ACLU of Kentucky, she really led the effort, as folks know, for no more no-knocks here in Metro Louisville, and we had a unanimous, and we thought it was so important as the ACLU. There was a period of time where we had the votes, and it was like, okay, Louisville is going to ban no-knock warrants. And it was so important to us to work to make sure that that vote was a unanimous vote, because we said Louisville needs to send a message to the world that these legalized raids of homes are dangerous, they're deadly on both sides of the door. There's no place for them in law enforcement. There's absolutely no place. And so no-knock warrants were banned in Louisville, and so that's a victory that we should continue to celebrate 4 years later. No-knock warrants have been severely restricted, not banned, but severely restricted at the state level, and that is something that we should celebrate. And there is this effort that started. Senator Rand Paul filed legislation in 2020 that did not move, and here we are 4 years later. Congressman McGarvey is filing legislation to ban no-knock warrants at the federal level. It's a really simple piece of legislation, which is good, because if you all know how Congress works, if it's complicated, it's very hard to get done. But it's a simple piece of legislation that essentially says if you get federal money for your agency, and we know how federal money flows and funds our police agencies around the country, but it says if you receive federal dollars, then there's a ban on no-knock warrants. You can't do them. So it's a simple and powerful piece of legislation that we hope to see move. Senator Cory Booker has recently signed on as a co-sponsor of that legislation. So there are some heavy hitters in Washington behind that, and we as the ACLU of Kentucky, and I know many in this room, support that. I want to talk about the legal aspects of this work. I was shocked to hear the news recently that some felt that everything related to the protest, all the legal matters related, had been resolved. And as many people in this room know, that is not the case. There are several ACLU clients who are here. Our organization filed a lawsuit in the fall of 2020, which is still going on. We have still not gone to trial. We are still working through pretrial motions, demanding that police stop using gas on peaceful protesters, stop using weapons of war against people who are exercising their First Amendment rights. That lawsuit does continue. We are working with the Legal Defense Fund as co-counsel in that case. I hope that it moves forward. Again, this is something that has been filed 4 years ago. We've asked for bans on tear gas at the Metro Council level. We continue just to ask that people's First Amendment rights are respected. And of course, as part of the DOJ report of the evaluation of LMPD, they also found that LMPD has a very long history of violating people's First Amendment rights. And so we'll continue to fight that fight. We talk a lot about accountability and what does accountability look like, and I think that there's another speaker that's going to talk about the People's Dissent Decree, which outlines some of what that looks like. The ACLU is proud to sign on to that, and of course the process is underway for the Department of Justice Dissent Decree, which is something that's currently being negotiated between the city and the police department. Of course, these negotiations are largely secret at this time because we've been told that a draft of the consent decree cannot be released to the public. And so we know some of the challenges that happen when those sort of negotiations happen in secret. We continue to believe that the people in this room, the people who are closest to the problem, the people who have been victims, the people who have suffered the abuse, are the people that have the answers, that should be in the room, that should be at the table, that should be involved in coming up with the solutions. And so I've had conversations with Chief Jackie. She's given me assurances. I hope that those are assurances that are also shared with the larger community, that to the extent that they are able to release information about those negotiations, that they will do so. But at the ACLU, we will continue to call for as much sunlight and as much sunshine on that process for directly impacted people to be involved in those negotiations. And it really is a question of, after all that we've been through, after all that has been uncovered and discovered about horrific abuse that has happened in this community for decades, which of course we already knew about from work from the Kentucky Alliance, from years of them documenting police abuse in this community, for people protesting in the streets and screaming and crying about injustices that were suffered. We already knew before the DOJ came to town what was happening, right? We now have the DOJ confirming or affirming that a lot of that happened. And so I hope as we have waited so long in this process that we come to a resolution soon, that there are accountability measures that will be put in place and be monitored by our federal courts. I hope that whatever negotiation there is, that it is short because all the evidence is clear. There shouldn't be a lot of negotiation that has to happen, right? Part of how we move forward and move toward healing is the hope that our police department would acknowledge, accept, apologize, and whatever is in that decree to move forward, to embrace that, not get caught into the details, not trying to negotiate a way out of reform, but really to embrace it. Thank you.
Thanks to everything that's been said. I'm Kate Fossil. I'm a historian, and Shamika took us back 4 years. Then Amber took us back to 2016 with the DOJ's research. I'm here today to take us back 2 centuries, okay? And so I want to just say a few things about the recent study that I co-authored on the history of institutional harms resulting from policing in Louisville. What we found was not a pretty story, and that's putting it very mildly, but it is one that must be told and told and told and understood widely if this community is going to make the fundamental changes you've heard about that are necessary for greater public safety for all of us in this community. Our research into public records across 2 centuries revealed a systematic, persistent pattern of discriminatory treatment of Black residents and other marginalized identity groups, both as residents and even as officers serving on the police force. Unlike many police agencies farther south, our city's police force, we found, does not appear to have been established as a slave patrol. But from the earliest policing in the form of the Night Watch in 1806, keeping Blacks in bondage or in inferior positions by imposing harsher penalties for enslaved persons, as well as for free Black residents, than for whites, was a central piece of local policing. Emancipation didn't end that disparity in 1865, nor did the post-World War II civil rights movement of the 20th century. Even though the police department hired its first 3 Black officers in 1923, for example, they served only in segregated units. It took more than 40 years for Black and white officers to be allowed to serve as partners or even to ride together in the same patrol car. The department resisted for decades both community pressure and even the demands of its own Black officers for reforms. Well, we found a few through lines that persisted throughout the decades, throughout the centuries. And I'm going to just talk about 3. One was the kinds of racial discrimination these examples refer to. Another was, which won't surprise you, was a lack of accountability for these kinds of unfairnesses, even on the occasions when they were uncovered and acknowledged. And the third through line, and interestingly, this actually seemed to worsen as the police force modernized in the late 20th century, was a closing of ranks in the face of internal wrongdoing, a real resistance to meaningful outside oversight, what some have called a wall of blue. The scope and severity of the patterns of police misconduct we documented show that not only was Breonna Taylor's brutal killing at the hands of LMPD almost tragically predictable, but unfortunately the denial of any real punishment of those within this web of wrongdoing that led to her death and the continuation of episodes of police brutality against Black Louisvillians since March of 2020 have sadly been predictable as well. Physics tells us that an object in motion tends to remain in motion, and that awful kind of motion has been ongoing. The clear message from our research is that we have a serious, deep-seated problem in our policing that persists across centuries, across personnel changes, across mental health and diversity training, and in spite of millions of dollars in taxpayer money spent settling lawsuits connected to irrefutable police misconduct. Our LMPD history study underscores the findings of the recent DOJ report. We have a whole lot of work to do as a community to root out those patterns of unequal treatment and put an end to the kind of horrendous brutality that took Breonna Taylor's young life so wrongly, so abruptly, so prematurely, as well as the milder but also far more widespread forms of interpersonal violence and disrespect that many, many, many Black and brown Louisvillians have for too long known as a way of life here. Social change almost never happens without collective pressure, which we've been hearing about today. On this terrible anniversary, I hope we can collectively commit to making this a safer community for us all. I'm honored to stand here alongside the Palmer-Taylor family, alongside Councilwoman Parrish-Wright, and these other incredible activists who have pushed so hard for police accountability and for wider social justice. I want to thank my co-authors, Dr. Felicia Jamison and Dr. Sidney Saar, and to our three incredible student assistants, Maya, Ethan, and Isabella. I want to encourage all of you to read the report, which you can easily access online. And finally, I'd like to say these comments are my own as a historian of 25 years duration of Louisville and as a co-author of this report. They do not represent the views of either Louisville Metro, which commissioned our research, nor of the University of Louisville, my employer of many years. And thank you.
We have linked the history of policing report in all of our press sends, and is it back on the university site?
I'm not sure, honestly. It's been up, it's been down.
You can go to the Ann Braden Institute of Social Justice Research at U of L. There is a website. It was up there, and it was taken down as a courtesy by former Deputy Mayor Barbara Sexton Smith, and we have asked for it to be put back up there. The authors did not know about that, so Kate is working with the University of Louisville to get that put back up there. And since then, the mayor's office, as I said earlier, has added it to the Louisville site, so you can find it there as well, and you can find it on my pages and social media pinned and shared. All right, I want to ask, the next three speakers are former State Representative Attica Scott, who is representing Forward Justice Action Network. I would ask Shrita Walden, who is representing Kentucky Harm Reduction Coalition. And you need to hear from, I was wrongfully arrested, but we have victims that are Black men who were targeted over and over again through the racial justice protests. So I'm going to ask one of them to come up before I introduce the other set of people, and that is Dee Garrett. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to start by saying, Dee, I see you, and I know you haven't gotten justice yet from the violence that LMPD inflicted upon you. And I want you to know you are seen. Councilwoman Parrish-Wright, thank you for listening to us when we asked you to file this resolution to put the people's voice into the consent decree. This is why you were elected. That's right. And I hope you heard her when she said that the history of policing report was taken off of the university's website for the administration. Right. This is why we as Black folks feel like we don't have a chance in this city. The cover-ups that happen, the way that whiteness is protected. It's ridiculous. I'm Attica Scott. I'm a voting rights advocate, a democracy leader, and director of special projects at Forward Justice Action Network. FJN is a 501c4 organization that serves as a strategic partner for coalitions and networks and nonprofits that are at the forefront of movements that are organizing for a more equitable, just, and free U.S. South. That's right. We are the South. And as the South goes, so goes the nation. I'm sick of the shenanigans at local and state government levels. We had a chance to fully ban no-knock warrants. Fully ban no-knock warrants with Breonna's law. But because of the games that are played in Frankfurt, that didn't happen for us. We did not receive justice, not for real. Not when you can still kick in somebody's door, sometimes in certain situations. Every situation will be justified. It's been 4 years since many of us put our lives on the line for justice and were treated like trash in the process. It's been a year since the Department of Justice released its findings and recommendations on the Louisville Metro Government and Louisville Metro Police Department. In so many ways, our uprisings in 2020 sparked discussions about politics and racism and white supremacy. In so many ways, our uprisings exposed what we all knew was not under the surface, but right there in front of us in the city of Louisville. And in so many ways, we're falling back to where we were pre-2020. But we can shift the tide. We can shift that tide together. We can make it clear that we refuse and we reject Mayor Greenberg keeping secret the consent decree from us. And instead, we can support what Councilwoman Parrish-Wright is doing with this resolution that was called on by the people's consent decree, many of us in this room. And what we are asking for is public acknowledgement of the toxic culture within LMPD. Y'all know it's there. Say it. We want community members to be a part at every step of creating the consent decree. This is about we, the people. We want clear timelines for the consent decree process. We should not get one response from DOJ and another from the mayor's administration. We want no additional money from LMPD. I know some of y'all gonna be at their wellness center today celebrating that new wellness center. They could have got memberships to the Y. And we could have gotten services. Instead, we need you to invest in housing, public transportation, community ministries, restorative justice Louisville, and all the needs we've been crying for pre-2020. We want the release of all of the officers, supervisors, and judges that were referred to in the DOJ report. We haven't forgotten. It wasn't only Mary Shaw. She was the one we came for. And there are many more who are up next. We want community observers for the FOP contract negotiations. Stop negotiating in secret. We want civilian review and accountability board subpoena power. And we want all of the remaining charges dropped against the protesters. So stop playing with people's lives because we refuse to go along to get along. In 2020, during my second term in office, along with Councilwoman Parrish-Wright, my daughter and I were unjustly arrested while we were using our First Amendment rights to protest police violence. It was powerful to be at Injustice Square Park nearly every day and witness people who only wanted justice. That was it, justice. We are at a crossroads, Louisville. This is the crossroads. This is it right here. We can either choose to go forward together and build the beloved community, or we're going to fall right back to where we were before we were protesting. Generations from now, people will ask, did you take action or did you sit on the sidelines? Were you silent because you wanted to be politically safe? Or did you speak up because it was expedient and it was right and it was just? So we're going to keep doing our work. We're going to keep fighting to keep this city from building a new multi-million-dollar jail. Many of us are going to continue to mentor that next generation that is asking of us and begging of us to be different and to do better. And if you read the history of policing report in Louisville, or any report really on policing in this country, you know that it grew out of colonization. You know that it grew out of slavery. You know that it grew out of white supremacy. So it's time for us to reject it all, and to say that we are going to build something else. We are going to build something better. Because we can take care of community. and we will take care of community. So I stand here on behalf of David McAtee, Shelby Lanier, Manfred Reed, James Groves, Adrian Reynolds, Desmond Rudolph, Rodney Abernathy, Clifford Lewis, Antoine Bryant, Marshall Marbley, James Taylor, Michael Newby, Larry Knowles, Breonna Taylor, Dang Mang Yoon, and far too many more.
My name is Sharita Walden, and I'm the Executive Director for Kentucky Harm Reduction Coalition. You understand what our organization does based on the title. So it's not just syringes. Right. Harm reduction is a strategy to reduce the risk of harms that substances, injustices to our community, all the things. So just wanted to make that clear. I'm tired of the gaslighting, okay? I gotta get to it. We know the history. Thank you, former Representative Attica Scott, and thank you for the historian, but we know it. Growing up in a household where my stepfather was a Black Panther Party member, and both parents became Chicago police officers, detectives, homicide and violent crimes. A lot of people get confused. They're like, Black Panther Party and police don't match. In fact, it actually does. The Black Panther Party believed in community, and that if we are going to protect and serve our community, we need to be a part of the systems, hence why I'm running for state rep in District 44. We need to be in the systems to effectively change. I'm an advocate for humanity. And if we're looking for accountability, it's not just involving the people in this room. We can't keep talking around the fact that I have officers and officers with rank who continue to tell me in my face, we want to see change too. But you don't do it. And see, I'm one of them people that get into trouble because I'm going to point out the conflict in what you're saying. I'm going to point out the fact that you're telling me you want to do something different, but you won't support the changes. Yeah. So if you want to do something different, then be a part of the change, officers. So for the officers, and I want you to see me because I know you're out there watching, the officers who told me, and I'm not going to call you out yet because I got your card, because I want to see you. I want to give you an opportunity. Okay, I want to give you an opportunity to change. And the way that works is that when you see something, you do something. Okay? What that looks like is that you might get into a little good trouble in your gang. See, the thing, law enforcement and policing is similar to gangs. Back to blue, GD folks. I mean, tell me the similarities. So if you want to see change, you're going to have to speak up and say, hey, we don't operate like that anymore. When you see someone doing something, your fellow man, and you know you guys are trying to improve connections and relationships in your communities, then you're going to have to speak up. And for my people that don't look like me that are in this room, do what I do. When I see a police car stopping someone of color, I pull over. I stop to check it out. I look, I see. I'm a harm reductionist, and in fact, you all can be harm reductionists too. You're reducing the harm in your community here. I have now honored you as a harm reductionist. Everybody in this room is a harm reductionist. Get out your car. Hey, is there any way that I can assist? And I've done it, and I found connection there. We all can do that. Change has to be active. We have to be a part of that. We have to encourage each other to speak up and do it. It is not easy. In fact, it is very uncomfortable. It is extremely difficult, but it's worth it. I said, I grew up in a household with officers who actually do think like officers at times. And I have to have difficult conversations with them. I had a difficult conversation with them about Breonna Taylor. They're my parents. And I had to do what I would do with any other officer and say, hey, I need you to slow down and listen to what happened. We don't get to back away and say, oh, they're not going to change, so I'm not going to challenge them. No, if I could do it in my household, I can do it. I'm working on my language today. I can do it. I can do it with the people in the community. And if you are about safety, then be about it. Are you reducing harm for the officers who want to change? What you're doing, is it in fact reducing harm to the communities that you say you are trying to provide support and safety to? Or are you increasing harm? I was a little girl who grew up hearing people say, I want to be a firefighter, a police officer, or a paramedic. You don't hear kids say that anymore. They don't want to be a part of the helping community, because that's what I was taught. These are the helpers. We know where policing came from. I told you where I grew up in. I'm not confused. I'm not confused. I know the history of law enforcement. But the helpers in the community, that's what we want to be. Now, you don't hear kids talking about that. They don't want to touch it. They're afraid. I asked my son, who is here today, 17, he don't want to be no police. That's scary. Why? Exactly. Abuse of power is a thing. Don't think I had it easy. Parents being police officers, I got it hard. I had police officers doing extra things with me. I never even talked about that. But seeing that my brother is going to come up here and talk about it, I've had targeting happen because my parents were officers and they rose to rank as detectives. So I had the bullying happening to me. Unethical stops. Being ticketed while I'm sitting at the meter. Oh, you sitting there, parked. So, change. Accountability. You can't do it on the outside. We can't talk about accountability in here and walk out and everybody clap their hands and say, yeah, that was a great one. We cannot do any more performative justice, folks, okay? Stop performing. It's over with. We're not playing no more, all right? If you want to do something different, you're going to have to act differently. I got youth underneath me, and when I move into the ancestor realm, because I'm going to be a dope ancestor one day, when I move into the ancestorhood, I'm going to protect my kids on that side, but I'll be damned if I leave them in this. This is a mess, and I'm terrified. We got to do something different. Do better, Louisville. I'm here to help, though. All right, that's it.